Welcome to Leading Behind the Scene. I'm your host, Gwendolyn Young, the go-to business and operations consultant for six-figure CEOs who are ready to reach their next level of growth. And I'm ready to share tools, strategies, and tips to help you excel in your business and your life. If you're a service-based entrepreneur, be sure to join me each Thursday. Find me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast player so you never miss an episode. And if you love the content, leave me a rate and review. Now let's get into today's episode.
Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of Leading Behind the Scene. Today, we are going to dig into some strategies and mindset shifts necessary to achieve time freedom and success as entrepreneurs. We are talking about protecting your time by setting boundaries and learning to say no. As entrepreneurs, especially as women, we're often bombarded with opportunities, requests, and demands that can easily consume our time and energy. So it's vital to establish boundaries and have the ability to say no to protect our well-being, focus on what truly matters, and create the time freedom we started this business for in the first place. Now, you know I love to set context. So before we dive into the practical strategies, let's first talk about why setting boundaries is so crucial for entrepreneurs. Now, if you are like me, and even if you're not, most of us started businesses because we have a deep passion for the type of work we do, and we want to make a positive impact through that work on the world. However, I have learned that without clear boundaries, we risk becoming overwhelmed, burned out, and we end up losing sight of our personal lives in the process. You know, that thing that matters the most. Boundaries help us prioritize our time, our tasks, our goals, and most importantly, they help us safeguard our mental and physical well-being. Know this sad truth. No boundaries equals little self-esteem. I know. I'm going to say it again. I know it was hard. Know this sad truth. No boundaries equals little self-esteem. Your boundaries are your values. Boundaries are representative of how much or little you respect yourself. Boundaries are your friend. Yes, they are your friend. While there are people who will respect your limits, there are also people who will continually push or break the boundaries you set up. So before you enter any type of relationship, make sure you have set boundaries in your own mind. Take some time to brainstorm what your boundaries are. Here's some questions to really think about and ask yourself. Who am I? What do I value? What am I comfortable with? And what am I not comfortable with? So what are some practical strategies for setting these boundaries? Thank you for asking. So glad you did. Strategy number 1, define your priorities. Take some time and sit down and reflect on what your top priorities are, both in your business and your personal life. By clarifying what truly matters to you, you can better allocate your time, your resources, and your energy. I don't know about y'all, but I'm on an energy budget, okay? Tony Jones said it best. I love people, but my energy tolerance budget is hella bougie. I'm just saying. Seriously though, defining your priorities gives you clarity that helps you make informed decisions when considering new opportunities or requests, ensuring that they align with your core values and goals and what's really important to you. So that's strategy number 1, define your priorities. Strategy number 2, one of my favorites, learn to say no. Saying no can be challenging, especially when we fear missing out on something or disappointing somebody. But let me let you in on a little secret. No is a full and complete sentence. It is necessary to understand that saying no allows you to protect your time and maintain focus on your priorities, not anybody else's priorities, but your priorities. Practice saying no respectfully and assertively. And remember that by declining certain requests, you create space for what you really want to show up. Don't live in the in between. Make sure that people understand what your boundaries are and don't be afraid to restate them as often as needed. Fear, guilt, self doubt, these are all big potential pitfalls and reasons why we say yes when we really want to say no. It is easy to fear the other person's response when we set and enforce our boundaries and when we say no. We might feel guilty for speaking up or saying no to a client or even a potential new client, even if we feel drained or taken advantage of or whatever it is. We might wonder if we even deserve to have boundaries in the first place. Let me remind you, yes, you do. You deserve it. Remember, if you don't know what you stand for, you'll tolerate anything and be stepped on like a human doormat. And we ain't got no time for that around here. Okay. So that's strategy number 2. Learn to say no. Strategy number 3, establish clear communication. Setting boundaries means absolutely nothing if we don't tell anyone what they are. So clearly communicating what your boundaries are is super critical. And I highly recommend doing this as early as possible because once you establish what you are willing to put up with, it's hard to backtrack. You know what I'm talking about. Working on the weekends, working past your regular business hours, taking calls and texts outside of your regular business hours, accepting last minute requests on a regular basis, and so on and so on. I know y'all know what I'm talking about. So communicate your boundaries early. Think about what's important to you. You want to think about things like, what are your work hours? How do you want clients to contact you and when, right? Do you want to be getting these Facebook messages, these Instagram DMs? Do you want people texting you on your cell phone? Like, how do you want clients to contact you and when? What happens if clients constantly show up late to meetings? How do you manage clients who go MIA or unresponsive to requests that you've made? You have to set the expectations. Otherwise, you risk eventually disappointing the other person and driving yourself crazy in the process. So use your voice. Share what your working hours are. Share your availability and share your limitations with your clients, with your team members, and yes, even with them family and friends. I said what I said. By setting expectations up front, you manage other people's expectations and avoid unnecessary interruptions or mismatched expectations. Because, child, those mismatched expectations can be lethal, but that's a whole nother episode and we don't got time today. Okay. So that's strategy number 3, establish clear communication. Strategy number 4, stick to your boundaries. The hardest part of setting boundaries is sticking to them. Once you have clear boundaries in place, you need to make sure that you don't waver from them, no matter what your client does. If you decide that you are not available past a certain time, make sure you are not available after that time. Now, don't be unreasonable, okay? Don't be out here in these streets being unreasonable. We know as entrepreneurs, we have to remain fluid and flexible. Of course, there will be exceptions like emergencies. I'm not saying if your client is in a whole situation and you can help out, I'm not saying don't help them, right? If it's an emergency, if it's really important. What I am saying is don't let the non-urgent things turn into emergencies. You know, the clients who never plan and think everything is an emergency and has to be done by the end of the day, right? Or the client who wants to wait until 5 p.m. to ask for something that they want first thing in the morning when they know you were heading out to vacation or we're going to be off for the day. I could go on and on, but I'm sure y'all get the picture. So give yourself permission to be okay with the boundaries that you've set. Without boundaries, you lose control of your time and energy. And when you don't honor your own boundaries, you can't expect that anyone else will. Okay. So strategy 4, stick to your boundaries. Strategy 5, decide the consequences ahead of time. So what happens if somebody pushes the boundaries? Because trust me, they're going to try it. Okay. They're going to try it. So decide what the consequences are. For example, if a client calls repeatedly after hours when you are not available, don't answer the phone. Even better, get a separate phone that is non-work related. The best way to figure out your own boundaries and consequences when people cross them is to sit quietly with yourself and create some strategies on how you will respond differently next time. Remember, boundaries are about honoring your needs, not about judging other people's choices. So, for example, I remember I had a client once where every single thing, email, tasks, etc., was urgent. They expected me to respond to all this stuff within 30 minutes or less, always referencing like how other people's support team replied within 5 minutes. And I tried to manage this crazy. I know, right? I know it's just crazy. Tried to manage that for about 6 months. And then I started having migraines every single week. My neck was tensing up. I was feeling terrible. And I soon put two and two together and realized this person was making me sick, like physically sick. So no matter how many times I explained that I was not a full-time employee, that was not my work style, they continued to push for it. I had to do what was best for me and fire that client. And the minute I did, I was no longer having migraines every week, was not getting sick, and not feeling completely drained. So if you don't set the boundaries, you could risk damaging the relationship or even worse, devaluing yourself, stressing yourself out, and literally making yourself sick. So nobody has time for that. Remember, as a rule of thumb, if you say no once and the person asks again, it's disrespectful. If the question is asked more than 3 times, it's manipulation. That's your cue to take action immediately. So your challenge, should you choose to accept, is strategy number 5. Take responsibility for yourself. This means to become aware, to develop the capacity for active conscious involvement, to know what needs to be done for yourself by setting your own boundaries. You're telling others how you want and expect to be treated. In other words, you are setting your limits about who can come into your space and what you can expect of them once they're there. How you want to be spoken to, how you want to be touched, how you want to be treated psychologically, emotionally. Whatever you say goes, no matter what others may think, feel, or believe. A corollary to this is that you are not responsible for the feelings and actions and belief of others, or for the way they react to the boundaries that you set. That's on them. You matter. What you need to protect your time, your energy, and your well-being matters. So if you're struggling with setting boundaries, head over to ceotimefreedom.com and book a CEO Time Freedom call, and let's create a plan of action together. Beautiful people, thank you so much for joining me today. Remember, setting boundaries is not about restricting opportunities. It's about intentionally choosing the ones that align with your vision and values. Embrace the power of saying no and protect your time as you navigate this entrepreneurial journey. Stay focused, prioritize your time, and create the life and business that you desire. I'll see you on the next episode of Leading Behind the Scene.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Leading Behind the Scene. I hope you found some encouragement or helpful information today to help move your business and or your life forward. If you have a specific topic you'd like me to talk about or guests you'd like me to have on the show, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. I love connecting with my listeners. Also, be sure to follow the podcast so you never miss an episode and leave me a rating review. I'll see you next week.